root and continue to carry its spirit in the same way today, on its second and the last day. The reason being, our parent institution, Sri Prince Shivaji Maratha Boarding House, is founded by the Rajarshi himself in the fond memory of his beloved son, Prince Shivaji. The institution and the college has been trying to walk on the path of the ideas of the great revolutionary king, Shahu Maharaj, ever since its inception till date. We have invited speakers from various arenas of society and the researcher and thinkers on Shahu, as well as the activists. Both of these types of our speakers are working towards carrying the mission of Shahu ahead. Since this conference is held in a blended mode, it has been both offline and online with the equal sessions. This session is online and attended both by virtual viewers as well as the audience in the auditorium hall of the college. We had in our earlier planning 2 speakers for this session. One, Dr. Sanjay Jadhav, and second, Mr. Sudhir Pednekar. Both the speakers are the sons of the soils of Kolhapur, and both have made their own mark on the international platforms through their achievements and work. The chairperson for this session is Dr. Pradeep Shinde, JNU, New Delhi. Unfortunately, our second speaker, Mr. Sudhir Pednekar, aging 88, is unable to attend this due to his health issues. We are going to have this session with our speaker, Dr. Sanjay Jadhav, and the session will be chaired by Dr. Pradeep Shinde. Our speaker for this online session, invited talk, Dr. Sanjay Jadhav, is from Dubai. He is currently working as a CEO at Silkland Trading LLC and group of companies, Dubai. He's a man who wears many feathers in his cap. Originally a medical doctor through his MBBS degree and MS, he later worked in Indian Civil Services. He has worked with the Ministry of Commerce as Deputy Director General of Foreign Trade. He has done MA in many subjects, including economics, social sciences, philosophy, and English literature. He has also done his postgraduate diploma in export orientations and business management. He has also done his MBA recently, and it is not enough. He's also passed Sanskrit COVID exam. He has a deep study into the major religions of the world. A multi-talented and multifarious personality, Dr. Sanjay Jadhav has been a very good orator, and his mesmerizing speeches is always a treat to the audience. We are indeed privileged to have Dr. Jadhav with us today to speak on the theme of the conference, Rajarshi Shahu, Perspective, Contribution, and Contemporary Relevance. I welcome Dr. Jadhav and invite him to deliver his speech. Dr. Jadhav.
Thank you. Respected elders, professors, Dr. Pradeep ji, and all those whom I can't see, but I can feel, all my pranams to all of them. It gives me a great pleasure to speak right at the forum where it all started for my family. My grandfather, who happens to be from a very, very economically backward community, could even think of getting himself educated because of one legendary king, Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj, and the entrance of Saraswati in our family, which happened only at the behest of Rajarshi, laid the road for our next generations to move upwards in the academic circles, achieving whatever best we could achieve in our careers. It would be absolute treachery on my part if anyone from my family, including myself, do not pay respect to the king whose blessings and the shadow is always lurking behind whatever our families, including myself, have achieved. I have titled this particular speech as Rajarshi Shahu, the king beyond the times, because earnestly I feel the assessment of Rajarshi is still incomplete. It still hasn't reached to the level it should have reached. And any standard to measure the achievements of this king always falls short of what he has actually achieved. I won't be wrong if I say that Rajarshi was a Kavi. I'm sure one of the not so good translation of a Kavi is poet in Marathi. What we normally call a Kavi in Marathi is not the meaning that is expected in Sanskrit. A Kavi is called Kranti Darshe. Darshanat yah krantayate sah kavihi. The one who is able to put his vision beyond the sights of others is referred to as Kavi. The one whose sight transcends the limits. And Rajarshi happens to be one of them. Perhaps, if I'm not exaggerating, long after such a meteoric personality that came amongst us in the medieval India, which still remains unparalleled in the history of the world, Chhatrapati Shivaji, if we look at the kaleidoscope of the history, after that, in the near times, during the colonial period, we do not see any giant as tall as Rajarshi Shahu, who can definitely be referred as Prati Shivaraya. If you look at the situation in which this king operated, one gets completely mesmerized by the fact that how anyone could ever perform so much in such a short span that have repercussions not only in the Sansthan of Karavir, but right at the foundations of human values. He gave a different shape to it. Shahu Maharaj means a person that defies logic. You cannot logically estimate him. Otherwise, how can you explain an 18, 19-year-old youth from a royal family thinking of the downtrodden even when he was sitting in London, and gets completely devoted to the cause, does not spare time to send the instructions from London, and Pat Kemp's the declaration in the Gazette in 1902, at a tender age of 19 years, Rajarshi issued a Gazette. The first time in the land of dependent India, that which was not achieved for hundreds of years, that which was attempted with the help of British government by the stalwart Mahatma Phule, got translated in the principality of 900,000 people, where 50% of the seats were reserved for those who did not know what education is. Of the 900,000, the upper caste, the Brahmins, who barely accounted for 1% or 2%, accounted for 97% of the positions in the government. It won't be wrong to compare the analogy of Shivaji with Rajarshi. The great Maratha king Shivaji, when he was born, he barely had a fort with him, an asset of those days. He started barely with 1 or 2 forts, perhaps the one where he was born, the Shivaneri. But at the time when he left his mortal body, the Maratha kingdom had 420 forts. In the similar vein, Rajarshi Shahu when he took upon the throne, 97% of the positions in the government and the administration were occupied by only 2% of the minority. And the situation got changed so much that the percentage of others, put into inverted comma, all other castes increased to phenomenal figure of 37% of the total within a short span of 2 decades. What vision? Forget about the opposition that he had and he was expected to have from all the so-called leading luminaries of the time. And without casting any aspersion, I must mention here that even Lokmanya Tilak fell short of looking at the destination where Rajarshi Shahu had set his sight. It is no way demeaning to Lokmanya Tilak. We are not great enough to castigate any opinion upon him. A great freedom struggler he was. Yet, when between the two stalwarts, we try to compare, we do realize that the vision of Shahu was far beyond all the leading luminaries of that time. Justice Mahadev Ranade, Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, all the three had intellectually contributed and appreciated Rajarshi Shahu's thinking. The king realized importance of English education and was completely fluent in the language, but never ever used the fluency of English while corresponding and communicating with his own subjects. Where else in history you get a king that never slept on a soft bed? One of the only kings of the princely India which influenced none else than the doyen of Indian philosophical world, Swami Vivekananda, was Sayajirao Gaikwad. And when His Highness Sayajirao Gaikwad came to visit Rajarshi Shahu, he was found to be sleeping in the place where normally the buffaloes are tied. The servant somehow wake him up and say, Rajarshi, Sayajirao is coming for the visit. He gets up from his place and asks for what? Can I get some tobacco to clean my teeth? And with his rough, tough clothes, this humble king, whose height cannot be measured in scales, walks to receive Sayajirao. And right at that time, one small child, not wearing any piece of cloth, just crosses the road. Rajarshi bends down, lifts up that child, plays with him, gives him a kiss, and Sayajirao asks a question, Raje, who is this child? And Rajarshi Shahu responds, he's my grandson. Now Sayajirao was at its wit's end. His own daughter was married here, and he didn't know that he had a grandson, and he asked Rajarshi Shahu, completely puzzled, how come you didn't tell me that I have a grandson? And then Rajarshi Shahu said, Maharaj, all these children are my grandchildren. And what did Sayajirao said? He said, yes, we are all kings by heredity, but the real Rajarshi is Shahu Maharaj. It completely defies logic that barely 23, 24-year-old king had so much depth in classical music. Simply listening once to Kesarbai Kerkar, he was able to pronounce her as she will be the greatest singer on the Indian classical music scene, and she did become one. Where else do you get a king who can literally define what is a fine Shadj and Gandhar when he was listening to Anjani Bai Malpeka? looking at a small young child having beautiful demeanors, extremely handsome, but at the same time having a beautiful voice. He recognized Bal Gandharva in the bud. The same king who was so expert in classical music was equally involved into the dramas and the three-act plays. What a cultural prosperity brought to Kolhapur. One of the leading actor of those times, Dattopant Hulyarkar, when he was performing in his drama, he took a pada to sing, and he sang it so beautifully that the Raja gave him once more, and once more, and once more, and the once more continued to the extent when Dattopant Hulyarkar absolutely fell on the ground and with half-closed eyes told Maharaj that, Maharaj, if you give me one more, once more, I will die. Here you see a king completely involved in the cultural pattern, and the next morning you see him standing right there in the wrestling arena. When the Punjab wrestler Hamdu came down to Kolhapur, Maharaj assessed how invincible this wrestler is, and whom did he put against him? It was Shivappa Berad. Coming from a Berad community, Maharaj knew which strength, what qualities each community, each individual has. What an eye of discernment. It is the same eye of Rajarshi Shahu who could see Kesharao Bhosle in offing, but it was the same eye of Shahu who could see a wrestler looking at the physique itself. From where Rajarshi is to get so much of time, only God knows, because in the morning he himself would require two big wrestlers to do his own mehnat. Bale Khan Wastad, the wrestling guru of Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj, what respect he gave to Bale Khan. At the same time, this king used to be in the royal darbar, distributing justice, and yet he would walk on his horse anytime when he pleased without any paraphernalia. Simplicity to the core, humility to the core, and yet towering personality. No wonder in 1911, when the Pancham George visited Delhi, all the kings of India, all the emperors, big and small, the Junagadh, the Hyderabad, all the principalities, entire Rajasthan, and the wrestling in the arena was ready. Rahim Baksh and Gama were to fight in the wrestling. And at 11th hour, they decided not to fight. It was a very poor show. Pancham George of England, the George V, was sitting there on the throne. Everybody was bewildered. And then this tall 6.5 feet, majestic personality from Kolhapur, the King Shahu of Kolhapur, gets up in his place, requests Imam Baksh and Hasan Baksh to have the fight. And the moment Shahu Maharaj said, both of them say yes, and the first wrestling match was held there. Imam Baksh won. Shahu Maharaj did not worry about any wrong aspirations. He simply went there, took out his feta, and put it on the head of Imam Baksh. All the kings were clapping for the King of Kings. What a majestic personality Shahu Maharaj had. We have often heard of Birbal with his 12 ratnas or the diamonds or whatever he had in his darbar. But Shahu Maharaj created diamonds out of everyone. Where else do you get a king who has almost an 8-inch long deep wound where you could see the bone, and he got operated for the stitches done by none else than Dr. Wanless, who told Rajarshi that you ought to take some anesthesia, at least local, for this purpose. And Rajarshi just smiled at it, saying that, all right, just go ahead and stitch my hand. What a forbearance. What courage. Where else you get a king that had ability to literally put his hand in the mouth of a tiger and kill a tiger with a bare human power? Absolute subtlety required to know the nuances of classical music on one hand, absolute power required in the wrestling arena, absolute Machiavellian brain working, intelligence working required in the area of politics. If we read about Tofkhane Guruji, because my alma mater was Vidyapith High School, founded by none else than Tofkhane Guruji. And Tofkhane Guruji was an ardent devotee of Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. When the Tapovan ground, where I spent my school days for some kind of games and other things, the same Tapovan field was given to Tofkhane Maharaj for the school. But somehow, on the date of inauguration, the time was very short, and Tofkhane Maharaj, sir, was extremely worried. So he came to Maharaj and said, Maharaj, I want to start the school, but there is so much of work there because it is all full of jungle. I need a lot of clearances there. A lot of dirt is there around. I can't be having this and start the school. Yet I want to start the school on the decided day. And what is the response of the king? The king takes the entire entourage, goes personally at Tapovan and ensures that everything is cleared. And for as long as 6 long hours, Rajarshi was standing there seeing the clearance of the entire thing. Tofkhane sir has written in his write-up that if this is not a yogi, who else he can be? What a patience for a king to stand at one place for 6 hours to ensure that the place is cleaned for the sake of one school that is getting opened on a particular day. But that is what Rajarshi Shahu was. We fell short. We fell short in assessing Rajarshi. We haven't understood him to the extent we should understand. And the reason for this is Rajarshi Shahu never ever did anything from the standpoint of discrimination, but from the standpoint of human love. Isn't it surprising that a complete follower of Satyashodhak Samaj and Arya Samaj, as he was, yet he never missed darshan of Ambabai. Way up there in London, early in the morning, whatever the winter may be, taking the bath with the cold water and doing the worship of Lord Shiva was the function of Rajarshi Shahu, who was none else than the Bhairav for the Shiva. What a foresight the king had. Today, at present, even the European world is struggling with one thing called domestic violence. In India, there is absolute abuse of women. Domestic violence is rampant. Now there is a law against the domestic violence. Rajarshi thought of this way back in 1917 and passed a law against the domestic violence. The intermarriages and intercaste marriages, Rajarshi gave the royal sanction to that. When? Way back in 1917. Compulsory primary education. Even in 1950s and 60s, the politicians were struggling with the idea of primary education. Rajarshi Shahu started it in 1917. What a foresight. Almost every king and emperor from India visited England. In fact, they used to go for the vacations to England and did what? They spent it entire vacation on the merrymaking and the entertainment. But Rajarshi Shahu was not like that. When he visited Rome, he saw the amphitheater. And the moment he saw the amphitheater, it came to his mind, why can't I have the amphitheater in Kolhapur? And then he comes back, creates a complete replica of the amphitheater in the form of Khasbagh. And what a pity. After he made the Khasbagh, till date, Kolhapur hasn't made anything like that, not even 1/10 of that. If you look at India, we see Mahabaleshwar, we see Lonavala, we see Shimla. All these are created by British people as the tourist destination or the summer destinations. And we just copy that even today. We haven't made anything of our own. Rajarshi in that time during colonial period made so many things on his own. What sheer power he had. Where else you get a king that could go astride the horse, start from Kolhapur and go to Mahabaleshwar 155 kilometers without stopping even for a moment from the horse? To get one quality in one person is supposed to be most difficult. But having Yasha, Kirti, Satta, Sampatti and Pratishtha all together, having Saraswati with equal brilliance, having Kshatra Tej with equal brilliance, and yet never executing the unbridled power in unhuman manner. Rajarshi was never inhuman. Even the Brahmins who went lock, stock, barrel against the Rajarshi, he still continued to have respect for them. Rajarshi won everyone, opposed everyone, argued with everyone, brought in social reforms, all with love for everyone. Irrespective of whatever Tilak took as a stand, to which he did not subscribe, yet the very news of passing away of Lokmanya Tilak was enough for the king to remain on fast. He had Ahilyabai Holkar Punya Shlok, Pratap Singh Maharaj. He was well versed with the history. Because of the paucity of time, Maharaj had a person called Mr. Bukte, who is to continuously read all the newspapers to him, irrespective of Maharaj, whether he's listening or not. That is how he is to collect the news about the world, the international affairs. No wonder. Even today, if we go to any nook and corner of Kolhapur or even the villages, people say, Shahu Maharajacha Vaktala. In the times of Shahu Maharaj, that is how the legend starts. If this was not the Ramarajya, what else it was? And what a short span. India's first medical postgraduate MD, Anandibai Joshi, the great woman that she was, when she came back, it was Kolhapur who gave the first job to her. And mind well, Maharaj has fought tooth and nail with everyone. When I feel, when I see in the backdrop of my screen of my mind, I see Shahu Maharaj as a big lion put into a cage by all these casteist people, all these colonial British people. Everybody was there to deride Rajarshi Shahu. Everybody wanted to Rajarshi to be pulled down. And this king fought single-handedly all alone. Even the trusted lieutenants like Bhaskar Rao Jadhav, he left certain meetings of Rajarshi Shahu to show the protest. But Rajarshi had no acrimony, no bitterness about anyone. In Pune, he met Lokmanya. On Miraj station, he met Bal Gandharva and asked them, why are you unhappy with me? Rajarshi did everything, thought of everybody, and kept human love as his panacea of all ills. Allah Diya Khan, Atroli Gharana is alive and kicking today because of Shahu Maharaj. The same Allah Diya Khan who was offered 10 times more Mehentana, but he used a word, I have given my voice box to Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. What an interest he had in painting. Another painter of Kolhapur state, like Shivaji, like Shahu Maharaj, which is completely underestimated. He hasn't got his due, is Abalal Rahman. I had a fortune of looking at his original paintings, almost 80, 85 of them. Maharaj sent him to Delhi, sent him to Kashmir. And mind well, Abalal Rahman was divinely inspired painter. Won't paint unless Shahu would tell him. Let my Raja tell me I will paint, otherwise I will not. And for the Kurundwad Sarkar had a brilliant divine singer. His name was Rahmat Khan. It is said that during those days, Rahmat Khan used to behave like a unmatta or a mad person. But he was gifted Gandharva. He would sing whenever his mood would be there. And in Narsoba Wadi, during summers, when the water of Krishna is receded, in the desert, absolutely hot sand, Rahmat Khan would lie down there and start singing. And when he used to sing, so mesmerizing was his voice that even the common rural women carrying the big pots of water on their head would stand still without realizing that there is a heavy load on the head. That was the mesmerizing swar of Rahmat Khan. Maharaj would take time out of his schedule to listen to Rahmat Khan. And yet, in spite of so many talents that he had, he always wanted to learn more. So as late as 1915, he asked Dr. Wanless, can you send me the books about the primary care, health care, and about the ambulance services? Where do you get a king who has burning desire and fire for the education to study more, even being a Maharaja? If you really look at the kaleidoscope of Shahu Maharaj's period of 25 years, a person like me feels like going back then and at least have a glimpse, a darshan of that Rajarshi. Yes, my grandfather had his darshan. Way back in 1916, my grandfather passed vernacular final and went for his further examination to Dharwad because there was no center in Kolhapur. Coming from a low economic strata, my grandfather had reached to the stage of vernacular final and had gone for this examination. But Maharaj used to keep the complete track of who are the young, bright Maratha or some other caste students, including Brahmin students who are doing really well. He had news of every single upcoming young boy with special talent, special skills. After my father, out of the entire people, only 6 people passed vernacular final. And then when they came from Dharwad to Kolhapur, Maharaj immediately summoned the 6 young boys to the Darbar. One of them was my grandfather. And the question asked to him, he asked to my grandfather, Pandurang, what are you going to do next? And my grandfather said, whatever you say, Maharaj, I will do. Before that, Maharaj has already studied the background of my grandfather, that he's from a very poor family. Immediately, he ordered that he should be put into Sontali as the accountant for the Paga, for the horses cavalry. What people of Kolhapur used to think of Rajarshi Shahu, I came to know while interacting with my grandfather. Moment I used to say to my grandfather, Baba, tell me something about Shahu Maharaj, he would shout at me. He said, how can you say Shahu Maharaj? Say Rajarshi. Now I realize how true it was. We are not fit enough to take his name, first name. We ought to call him Rajarshi. I used to ask my grandfather, Baba, how was he to look at? And the way my grandfather used to describe it, oh, what a personality. He used to tell me, you don't know how tall he was. Our Raja, if he stands, everybody used to feel themselves so small and short. He was not only physically tall, he was majestic. Looking at the combination of the virtues and qualities that he possessed, I am definitely convinced that Maharaj was a divine reincarnation. I know I may be called superstitious. I may be commented upon as a person with archaic opinions, but I stand firm on the fact that I'm not able to solve the puzzle called Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj, because how in one royal personality so many things can be put in by the Lord. That itself makes him divine. What age? 18 and 20. Even if we look at our own age, at 18 and 20, you know nothing of the world. But this king at the age of 19 could know everything about the world. The downtrodden, the Faseparadis, the Bereds. What status Rajarshi gave to Faseparadi people? Even today, the police department in Maharashtra is struggling with how to rehabilitate this particular community. You will never be able to rehabilitate them unless you know what human love is. Rajarshi knew it. Lala Pardhi was Rajarshi's close confidant. Rajarshi's death always was lurking around him. The Britishers wanted to get rid of him. The courtiers wanted to get rid of him. The opponents wanted to get rid of him. Physically, it was impossible to tackle this Maharaja. But there were secret plots always hatched against him. That is why every bowl of food that Rajarshi took was first tasted by Lala Pardhi. And he was epitome of courage in Pune for the right thing. In the meeting of Shivaji Sanstha, when there was a plot to create the chaos and do physical bashing of Maharaj, and when it all started, Maharaj was still sitting tall in the entire crowd and did not move a bit and did not wink at all. It was P.C. Patil Thorat, who fortunately happens to be now my great grandfather-in-law, and Jede Sahib. They took the Maharaj from the back entry, and then he was he was taken away from the scene where anything could have happened to Maharaj. Today, everywhere we see the wrestling, we see the wrestler with a gada in his hand. A wrestler is always gadadhari. Who brought gada in wrestling? It was Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. When for one wrestling in Bombay, he realized that his own Malla from Kolhapur is going to win. He wanted to reward that particular wrestler with gada made of gold. Only 7 days were left. And in 7 days to prepare the golden gada, Rajarshi put his entire entourage on the work. And ultimately, there is a gentleman called Otari who casted this particular gada within 7 days and gave it in the hands of Rajarshi, who gave it to the winner, the wrestler from Kolhapur. What is the depth of interest in every cultural facet? You don't have the higher posts. All higher posts are usurped by the Brahmins. They are not letting anybody else come up. When Maharaj realized it, he realized it through Vedokta Prakaran. Highly immoral Brahmin, not taking even the bath, had an audacity to tell a king that you are a Shudra and you have no Vedokta Adhikar, your rights will be done as per the Puranas. Chaturvarnam Maya Shrushtam is written in Bhagavad Gita. But by twisting the meaning of Chaturvarnam Maya Shrushtam, Sarva Jatim Brahmanam Shrushtam. This is the kind of situation that was made. If the king can be insulted by the most commonest of the Brahmin, who was surviving on the piece of land given by the Raja himself, Rajarshi thought about it. He hasn't slapped the Brahmin. In fact, the family members were so keen that he should be killed. It was Rajarshi who stopped them. This is what I want to emphasize. Even being a king, completely in the authority of doing some punishment to him, he didn't do that, but he kept thinking. He said, if this can happen to me, what must be happen to a commoner? That's why Rajarshi's life is only a life of fights and fights and fights. He fought with the upper caste, the Brahmins, for the sake of lower castes. He fought with people in his own caste, the Marathas, the Sardars and all that, because he was doing something far beyond their vision. Not that Rajarshi's contemporaries in the Darbar liked Rajarshi going into Kambale's hotel and having some food there. Because then the Shahno Kudi or whatever we call it would have got diluted. The descendant of Rajarshi Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was doing everything that a normal Sardar could not accept. So there was a fight there. In his own home, he had to fight what? The unfortunate demise of his son. When he looked at his daughter-in-law, Indumati Rani Sahib, he was constantly thinking, what can be done for this young widow? She has to have her own life. The widow has to have her own life. And then he thought of her education, discussed at length with Tofkhani sir. But none from the royal family was in the favor of Indumati being educated or Indumati should be getting into the educational field. Yet Maharaj stood against them. Fought with the Britishers, fought with the Brahmins, fought with his own courtiers, fought with his own royal family. His life was life of struggle. That is the only reason why again and again I get a feel when I think of Rajarshi, I see a giant lion being caged all around, ferociously fighting the cages. And he did it. He did it. Always allowed new thoughts to come in his mind. Moment he heard of Theosophical Society, He didn't keep quiet. Read entire thing of theosophy. Called Professor Urundel in Kolhapur. It's a matter of pride for all of us that Annie Besant herself came to Kolhapur. How this Rajarshi could manage in 24 hours, because the day is not more than 24 hours. When did he sleep? When did he do all this? And all that in a short span of just 25 years. And he had no liberty to mature his thinking. He had to mature all his thinkings right there at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. Look at his relationship with Prabodhankar Thakre. He kept bondage with everyone. He knew what is right. He knew what is Satya. But for Shahu Maharaj, Satya Shodhak Samaj and that particular movement would have died. Even now, when we read all the articles written by various stalwarts on Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj, we realize one thing, yet a complete assessment of Rajarshi Shahu is impossible to be done. He was a mixture of a lot of controversies. If you call him a person following Arya Samaj, not believing in idols, not believing in any kind of formalities except the puritanical aspect of Veda, you say that yes, he was an Arya Samajist, but never missing the Murti Puja. How do you reconcile these two opposite things? But Rajarshi was a mystical combination of opposites. But the entire energy was working only towards Vidhayaka Karya. And what can be more a fact of pride for us than the fact that we are born in a city where he was our king? Today, when I come back to Kolhapur, because I belong to that soil, I spent a good long time away from that place. It's been more than 40 years. But I feel I've come back to my mother when I enter Kolhapur. But when I see what is happening there, I see every step. There is an insult of the values that Rajarshi kept for his own city. In the nest where the nightingale was resting, now the crows have started perching. None. It's a very sorry state of affairs that we have not stood up to the values of Rajarshi Shahu. How many of us have gone beyond our sphere of influence and tried to emulate some of the principles of Rajarshi, what he gave to us? We are still discriminating. We are still casteist. We are still feeling the pride of upper caste. We don't study. We are not proficient in multiple arts. We do not patronize culture. We have parochial views. We are extremely narrow-minded. And this is what is the defeat of Rajarshi's values. I'm very glad the Prince Shivaji Samstha, the college which was my alma mater, the new college, they did this Parisamvad or the conclave. At least in the memory we can bring back Rajarshi again. And somewhere if the Rajarshi's readings, his values have gone and seeped in our dhi, the buddhi, maybe it will influence our actions. And if one act is done in the values of what Rajarshi taught us, that will be the highest pranam, highest respect, highest gratitude to this legendary king called Chhatrapati Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj. My millions of salute to him. Hari Om.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Jadhav, for your eloquent speech, full of intense emotions of love and respect for Rajarshi Shahu. Through your well-studied speech, you have covered many aspects of the great mission of Shahu Maharaj. Thank you once again for your elaborate discussion with examples from Shahu Maharaj's life. Your speech has unfolded clearly how Rajarshi was a king beyond times. Sir, I would like to make a request to you that you can pin on the account of Principal New College, you can see the audience also. So if you could pin them on your phone or laptop from wherever you are presenting, you could see the audience, sir.
Is it from the
Principal New College? You can see that. You just pin it, sir. You can see it. The audience wants to express their gratitude to you, and they are very happy with your mesmerizing speech.
I would like to know how I.
Sir, you just on the top you will see the participants, okay? And there is this Principal the New College. You just click on that.
Is it host or the co-host?
Yeah, sir. Co-host, host, co-host. So Principal the New College, sir.
Yes.
Did you see it, sir? There are two. One is host and one is co-host. Two of them.
Yes.
One is blank and one is with the hall connection. Principal the New College.
Yes.
Can you see? Can you see it, sir? You just pin it. You just tap it, click it. You did it, sir?
Well, I can see this group.
Sir, can you see it? The entire hall and the audience?
Still able to visualize it. Yeah, I can't see it. Yes.
Sir, no, please. You just tap on the Principal the New College, Kolhapur.
I did that. I did that.
Can you see the audience then?
No. I'm not able to see that.
Sir, there is one more. You just go ahead. There is one more Principal the New College. There are two with the same titles.
Yeah, but in both of them, I'm just able to see the. I mean, I'm not able to see the audience.
Is it?
Click on the pin, sir. Go on to the extreme right. Up. Click on the pin there.
Pradeep, sir, can you see the?
Yeah. I did. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm not able to. Because when I click on the Principal, I this the message is
one is blank, sir, and one is the you can see the live audience there.
Well, and the one is with video sign and one is with the audio sign. Because I'm using a link that is given for this meeting by
Yes,
Professor.
you are right, sir. You are on the right track.
Yeah.
You're on the right track. This the only thing is that you have to just pin this Principal the New College, sir.
Yeah, but I got just a chat in front of me.
Chat
Okay,
and, there are two options: chat and pin. Click pin, so you'll have a broader view of the hall, which is quite beautiful, by the way. Looks like a 5-star hotel.
No, sir. It's a heritage building, sir.
Okay.
I would like to bring it to the notice that since Dr. Jadhav had been here to our college and we are waiting for you, if you ever come in future, we would let you know that this is a heritage building. This institution itself is patronized and founded by Shahu Chhatrapati Maharaj, and this building also is that ancient. So this is a heritage hall. We have just made it, updated it. That's all.
Looks quite beautiful, very grand.
Yes,
I must say.
And the conference is happening in the same place where, which is actually the land of Shahu. Okay, sir. Thank you so much. I think there is some problem and you cannot see it. But the audience has paid their respects to you and they have given and expressed their gratitude to you for the wonderful speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Since the second speaker is not there, he is unwell and he won't be able to present. He's from Switzerland. I just would like to express that he has written 4 books and different books on different areas of life. He himself is an engineer. He's a man of 88 and he has worked on the first computer in the world, and which was made by German engineer. So he was also a well-versed personality. Sadly, we could not hear him today. And so then we are moving on to Dr. Pradeep Shinde, the chairperson of this session. Is a scholar in social anthropology from London School of Economics, where he did his MSc, MPhil, and PhD. Presently, he is working as assistant professor at Center for Informal Sector and Labor Studies, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has received many fellowships and awards, to name a few: fellowship at Humboldt University, Germany, teaching fellowship at University of Kassel, financial award for thesis writing from London School of Economics, Ford Foundation International Fellowship for PhD. He has published many research papers at national and international level. I feel honored to welcome the chairperson for this session to present his remarks. Dr. Pradeep, please.
How much time do I have, ma'am?
As per your choice, sir, you can take 25 to 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. After listening to Dr. Jadhav's very highly engaging and extremely fascinating presentation, which I believe consisted of sociology, political science, history, aesthetic, and of all kinds, music, and even sports also, for example. He spoke quite eloquently about Rajarshi Shahu's interest in wrestling. And he was also, he had a very keen eye on aesthetics of various kinds. Music, for example, and lots of other things apart from his concerns for the poor and the downtrodden. And I, as a sociologist or a student of sociology, have been reading Rajarshi Shahu's work and works on him. And we basically discuss about his, his views on society, his concerns about the downtrodden, the marginalized, and the amount of efforts that is spent on uplifting them, on liberating them from the caste servitude, from various traditional structures of Indian society that continue to ail Indian society. There is no doubt about that. But when we think of any social movements that aims at empowering the marginalized and downtrodden, including women of all castes, for example, Shahu's Herculean efforts during those days when Brahminical orthodoxy was at its peak, and would oppose almost habitually to social reform movements like in the widow marriage, for example, uplifting from the morass of caste servitude, the untouchables. So all of these were, not only great efforts, but also have guided, provided a great deal of inspiration, insights, and I would even go to such an extent as to say that a lot of the sociological work that emerged later, I think, as far as social empowerment or social upliftment of the marginalized is concerned, the credit should rightfully go to Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj's pioneering work. the manner in which he had been influenced by Satyasujak Samaj, and that influence did not remain to the political arena, but also seep through or entered so many other areas. Education, empowerment, social empowerment. He established colleges, hostels, played a very prominent role in encouraging people to acquire not only modern education, but interestingly, he also enabled the people who had been excluded because of the caste system, um, uh, enabled them to access Sanskrit language. Because of that, perhaps the Brahmin orthodoxy opposed tooth and nail the efforts of Shah Maharaj. So in that sense, any social movements that begins not only in India but elsewhere also, I think the credit for that should legitimately go to Rajarshi Shah Maharaj. He was certainly ahead of his times, no doubt about that. If we compare, any Maharaj or any king or any prince, we don't really see the concerns about the downtrodden and the marginalized, and of course, including women, but also for the preservation of knowledge, Dhyan, and his efforts in preserving various disciplines of knowledge, his concerns for the what we call in philosophical terms epistemology, theories of knowledge. So in that sense, he was kind of a guiding force to sociologists, political scientists, historians, and people who study arts and aesthetics. So he was not only a king, but also had a very keen eye on various disciplines of knowledge. And you don't really find such kings, not even these days. There are no kings anymore. But people who have, who are moneyed. We hear about big industrialists, but we don't really see their concerns about, bringing in or introducing modern education. Modernity came into the country, during British times. We attribute everything that is modern to the British, to the colonial era. But we continue to struggle to provide education, primary education to our children in 21st century. But as Dr. Jadhav rightly pointed out, Shah Maharaj had concerns about primary education during those days, in early 19th century. I mean, who'd think about it? People were busy ruling, busy attacking each other. But Shah Maharaj was genuinely interested in providing modern education to the people of his, not only of his state, but also of various castes, creed, religion. And he was, in that sense, a truly secular king. And he was the true heir to Shivaji Maharaj's legacy. And he not only believed in that legacy, but also practiced. There is a huge difference between believing in something and implementing or practicing on those beliefs, on those instincts. I think that is why Shivaji Maharaj as well as Shahu Maharaj come across very different kings. So Maharashtra should be eternally grateful to these kings for starting, I would say, social reform movements, starting empowering women, empowering downtrodden, socially, economically marginalized classes. So in that sense, Shah Maharaj's contribution was pioneering. He was the I believe, pioneer of or carrying forward the rich legacy of Mahatma Phule's Satyashodak Samaj. Shah Maharaj's contribution, as far as I pointed out before, and also quite eloquently pointed out by Dr. Jadhav, quite fluently and quite engagingly, that as long as social inequality exists in this society, Shah Maharaj's name would always come up, and his contribution, his legacy, will always be a kind of guiding line, as a guiding force, as a guiding force to those who believe in abolishing inequalities of various kinds. Sadly, we continue to have in our midst these various inequalities, and we continue to grapple with these inequalities. In fact, I would go to such an extent as to say that these inequalities are making comeback. There are forces in this country, in this society, that would want to rejuvenate these inequalities, because they are interested in consolidating their grip over the society so that they can dominate and hegemonize. This is a fact. People may not agree with this, but this is a fact, and that we have to acknowledge that. So as long as these inequalities exist in the society, Shah Maharaj's pioneering work is going to be always relevant. A few days ago in Bombay, students from a government hostel have been protesting against the bad living conditions in the hostel. But just imagine, Shah Maharaj played a very constructive role in in contributing to the constructions of new hostels for people of all kinds and all castes and all sexes, I suppose. Who would think of saying that there should be widow remarriage in the early 19th century, 20th century? Who would have thought about this? I mean, the Brahminical orthodoxy was its peak, and Brahminical orthodoxy has always been, consolidating its power over society, asserting its power over society. But then the king, instead of succumbing to the kind of politics that was played against him, Dr. Jadhav also pointed out the controversy with that episode where Orthodox Brahmins refused to perform Vedic ritual for the family of Shah Maharaj. But Shah Maharaj stood up to them, and he did not only stand up to them, but also made sure that Sanskrit language will be accessible to everyone. And we see the result of non-Brahmins being so eloquent as far as Sanskrit language is concerned. I can give you names. Sharad Patil, Marxist intellectual from Maharashtra, was one of them, was also Prachavita Pandit. And we also just heard Dr. Jadhav so eloquently speaking about Sanskrit language. So Shah Maharaj efforts were not only to give access to this one of the ancient languages. Tamil is another ancient language, along with Sanskrit, but also made sure that non-Brahmins would have unhindered access to the to the teaching, to the studying of Sanskrit language. So it would be a kind of some people have this habit of putting Shah Maharaj against Brahmins. Rajarshi Shah was not against Brahmins. He was against Brahminism. And I think this rich legacy of this very fine distinction was also carried forward by Dr. Ambedkar, who very closely interacted with Shah Maharaj in the late 19th to early 20th century. And he greatly admired Dr. Ambedkar also contributed in terms of money to the newspaper that Dr. Ambedkar started, the Mukh Naik. Shah Maharaj contributed 2,500 rupees to the starting of the newspaper by Dr. Ambedkar. So you can imagine his concerns for those people who are educated and who had great deal of concerns for the downtrodden people, for the women. All these aspects have been quite broadly touched upon, elaborately presented by Dr. Jadhav. I have now, being a sociologist, I have read a little bit of history, but my main concern would be the current situation, the current predicament. That I'm using the word predicament quite consciously, because to what extent this rich legacy, quite revolutionary legacy of Shahu Maharaj is being carried forward by the people who believed in these thoughts. And the kind of politics that is happening today, the kind of cultural domination that is being asserted. And this cultural domination is also entering into the domain of politics. So this domain of politics is also reflecting different kind of, different aspects of cultural politics. So in the modern times or modern society, we're supposed to maintain distance between religion and politics, because we are a secular state, we are a secular country. But unfortunately, we're seeing that there is these two things that should remain quite apart from each other, religion and politics, are being mixed for political purposes. So Shah Maharaj knew this distinction quite finely, and therefore did not allow politics and religion to be intermingled, because perhaps he was he knew the repercussions of this kind of mixing, because being a modern country, being the modern state, and also greatly influenced by certain archaic forces, that is caste, excessive use of religion in the domain of politics, the kind of treatment that we give to women. Patriarchal values continue to exist. Strangely, I must say that patriarchy continues to influence our thinking. But think of the legacy of Shah Maharaj. He never differentiated between women. He empowered women by encouraging them to have, especially widows, to have another marriage. He also ensured that young women would be encouraged to acquire modern education. All of this needs to be revived. I'm not saying that this is we're not practicing these structures of empowerment. We are, but I think if we compare these two times, Shah Maharaj times and the modern times, today's times, I feel that we haven't really done justice to the legacy, the rich legacy of Shah Maharaj. We continue to believe in certain archaic values. We continue to believe, we continue to practice, gender. We continue to practice caste, although we don't really realize it. We do. Sometimes we overtly practice caste, sometimes we covertly practice caste. So caste, gone are the days where caste would be openly practiced, because we have a very robust constitution that that no longer allows us to practice caste, and people who practice caste can be legitimately punished. Gender discrimination is also at the peak, I suppose. So in that sense, if we really want to do away with this traditional structures of discrimination, we must revisit Shahu Maharaj's thoughts, revolutionary thoughts, his views, and also try and practice what he not only preached but also practiced. The empowerment of the socio-economically marginalized sections of our society. In that true sense, if we really want to live up to the rich legacy of Shah Maharaj, we should have Shahu Rajya. I beg to differ with Dr. Jadhav that he spoke about Ram Rajya, but I would prefer Shahu Rajya because I knew I have read Shahu Maharaj. I see his pictures. I see his rich legacy reflecting from the from various institutions that he has left behind. I see him as a man of substance. I see his beautiful personality, robust, extremely influencing personality. So I believe, and I must say that I should expect on everyone who believes in social equality, Shahu Rajya. Okay? So because Shahu Rajya had equality of all kinds. Shahu Rajya had access to education to everyone, provided access to education to everyone. Shahu Maharaj fought against all those social evils. So Shahu Maharaj fought against social inequality. Shahu Maharaj preserved whatever rich cultures of all castes, I believe. Shahu Maharaj encouraged modern values. Shahu Maharaj very freely interacted with whatever came from outside, interacted with British. Dr. Jadhav also spoke about Annie Besant having visited Kolhapur. So Shahu Maharaj was, he welcomed anything that he thought was new and liberating from the archaic values of our society, deeply embedded in your psyche, and we continue to have a kind of resurfacing of these values. So in that sense, Shahu Maharaj Shahu Maharaj died in 1922. But Shahu Maharaj's legacy, Shahu Maharaj's work, Shahu Maharaj's empowering thoughts continue to live and would continue to live as long as social inequality or inequalities of various kinds exist in our society. So in that sense, if you really want to do away with this social inequalities of various kinds, we must have Shahu Rajya. And I think with these few comments on the very engaging and fascinating presentation by Dr. Jadhav, I should stop. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep sir. I'm Raghunath to propose a vote of thanks. To begin with, I most sincerely thank Dr. Sanjay Jadhav, who spoke about Shahu Maharaj. Actually, my colleague Dr. Arundhati has already spoken about Dr. Jadhav sir's speech, and I agree with her. It was a brilliant speech. It was a passionate, and he have opened up Shahu Maharaj's character for all of us. Thank you so much for finding time and giving such a wonderful speech for all of us. I thank Dr. Pradeep for his remarks and for his concerns about the present predicament of Indian politics and also society. Thank you very much, sir. And it's a quite interesting comment that you have made, that you prefer Shahu Raj rather than Ram Raj. So thank you so much for being, for joining us. We are very grateful to you for giving wonderful speeches for the audience who are participating in this and making this conference a grand success to all of us. So once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jadhav sir. Thank you, Pradeep sir. Thank you, audience. And with this, I declare this online session is over. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.